Hello and welcome, everyone. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. You're listening to my strategy. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Very happy to be here with you today. My strategy episodes are live and on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today's show, we're going to be talking about staying organized and how that can improve your effectiveness. We're going to talk about the benefits of being organized, why it's challenging to stay organized. I'm going to give you some tips to keep organized even when you don't feel like it. We're very happy to be here with you today. Saturday is a great day of the week to reflect on your strategy, but really any day is a good day for you to reflect on your strategy. The show is growing. We are now available on iHeart, iTunes, Player FM, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and many, many more digital platforms. So if you missed this episode or would like to hear some of the others, you can go there to find them. You can find me on most social platforms. My Twitter handle is @HawkinsJohn. That's @HawkinsJohn. Or you can visit my website at johnmhawkins.com. And just like anything in life, we need to have a strategy and a plan to help us reach our goals because the best laid plans don't always work. This week, I'm looking for stories on disorganization or organizations. If you have a tip or a trick, send it my way to talk@johnmhawkins.com, and I will enter you into our weekly giveaway. Well, we're talking today about disorganization. So in today's show, we're going to be talking about how disorganization is ruining me and my business. We'll talk a little bit about business disorganization and also personal disorganization. Those two are closely related. We're then going to talk about the psychological benefits of being organized. You can get rid of your stress, help you from a endorphins perspective. It can actually increase endorphins. Then I'm going to transition a little bit and talk about why you can't get organized. I've got an interesting piece here by a psychologist, Mark Banshik, who talks about the can'ts or the won'ts. Can you not get organized or won't you get organized? Can'ts don't know how. Won'ts don't feel like it. We'll then talk about 27 of the best tips to get and stay organized. I'm going to talk about setting the 3 most important tasks, your to-do list, including a one place for all tasks, and simple things like do it now or put that thing away now. Don't wait till later. Then we're going to put together your strategy. We're going to use our special framework with a systematic approach, and will help you put together a strategy to stay organized. So disorganization is ruining me and my business. I want to start with the definition of disorganization. I think it always helps to have a context around what it means. According to the dictionary, it's lack of proper planning and control. Social disorganization is destroying the well-being of the population. Inability to plan one's activities or affairs efficiently. If you frequently lose your keys, you may be suffering from chronic disorganization. I think, disorganization is something that impacts us at every level of our lives. And this show is all about personal development and building a strategy, so I think it ties in nicely. So that's disorganized. What about organization? Well, there's 2 main definitions here. One of them is an organized body of people with a particular purpose, especially a business, a society, or association. So this is in reference to an organization, company, firm, concept, operation, cooperation, institution, group, consortium, conglomerate, etc. And it's interesting that they chose organization to define companies. The second definition is the act of organizing something, the organization of conferences and seminars, which has to do with planning, arrangement, coordination, structuring, administration, running, management, logistics, and more. So really what we're trying to do here from an organizational perspective is we are trying to put things in place. And I think that, when we think about whether it's our personal lives or our business lives, there's a lot of similarities. First, I want to talk a little bit about the 4 negative impacts to a disorganized company. Got an article here from Shula Marks. It's talking about the negative effects of a disorganized company, and some of these might be pretty obvious, but I think it's important to go through them because, not only could it impact a business, but it impacts other things such as your brand. So first, she says it stifles productivity. If an employees don't have a clear sense of your company's mission, value, and vision, how can they carry them out? And if your workers don't know or understand the work they're required to do, how can they adequately complete the tasks? What about decreased employee engagement and morale? This goes along the first point. If a worker is unproductive or if he or she is likely disengaged, that person will decrease the overall morale of the company. So we always want to make sure that workers are aware of what's going on in the company. An organization is a way to do that. This organization can also harm clients' relationship. You think people want to do business with a disorganized company? Think about it. What if you went to a restaurant and waited 15 minutes before someone even greeted you and then led you to a seat? Then the waiter or waitress didn't return to take your order for another 15 minutes. And once you placed your order, he or she brought out the wrong food. To make matters worse, what if you asked to speak to the manager and the worker informed you that he or she wasn't sure if the manager was working that day? Not only is this organization, but I think it ties into communication, which is as important as the organization. Organized and communication go hand in hand. She also says it destroys the brand. Lack of organization can harm a company's reputation, which will ultimately destroy the brand. And that is what many companies value most, is their brand, their reputation, who they are in the industry, because that's going to give them the ability to generate more business. Now, there's also some implications on a personal level. Got an article here by Katie Halverson. Says, can organizing impact your mental health? She talks about the impact of disorganization. It has impacts on your physical health. Cluttered place can have fire hazard. Is a fire hazard. Dust and mold. Some studies show an association between how much clutter you have and excessive weight. What prevents you from getting organized, she says. You've never really been organized? Not knowing how good organization feels makes it hard to want that feeling in your life. You have too much stuff? And organizing takes time. At a career, family, and other obligations, an organization falls to the bottom of your list. So there's lots of negative impacts of being disorganized, and there's a lot of positive benefits of being organized. But you're going to have to wait till after the break for us to talk about those. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about the psychological benefits of being organized. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Network and Global Studios. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins, and you're listening to My Strategy. Welcome back, everyone. Right before the break, we were talking about disorganization and how it is ruining me and my business. We're focusing on, what disorganization is and what organization is. In this segment, I want to talk about the psychological benefits to being organized. There's a number of health benefits in addition to the branding and the imaging, that positive branding and imaging that you can get when you are better organized. So I've got an article here that talks about the psychological benefits of organization. It says here, disorganization can be incredibly detrimental to your lifestyle. Cluttered spaces aren't just unpleasant for guests, reflecting poorly on your image. Messiness can also prevent you from being fully productive and affect your physical and mental health. To better understand just how powerful organization is, it's helpful to look beyond just its obvious physical advantages. They give us 5 benefits of being more organized. First benefit is say goodbye to stress. Perhaps the biggest advantage to being organized is its ability to decrease stress. On a basic level, a messy room is essentially too much information for the eye to process at once. It then acts as a visual reminder to the brain of what needs to happen to achieve a tidy and organized space. While you may or may not notice this stress on a daily basis, the low-grade presence of its inevitability depletes your energy. I think this one is an interesting one. Imagine, going into someone's house or into someone's business, and you see clutter. You see things that need to be put away. You see unstocked shelves. It says here that your brain looks at that and starts to remind you of what needs to happen to tidy it, which can lead to stress. And I don't think that's the intent of a business, having their customers come in and be stressed out. But it is something to think about, whether you have your own home untidy or you're at a business. The second is natural nurturing. Organizations have a natural way of nurturing your psyche, whereas clutter has the exact opposite, making the brain anxious and overworked. By coming home to a clean, organized house or starting every day in an orderly office, you can focus on the present tasks at hand or comfortably relax without your brain having to get too stimulated. Organization brings tranquility to the space as a previously benefited highlight. Helps to reduce stress and improve your body's ability to relax and rejuvenate. You just imagine that. You go and sit at a messy desk, and your brain automatically says, oh, look at all these things I need to do to get it clean. But you don't clean it and continue your work continue to work. In the back of your mind, your brain could be continuously trying to think about how to reorganize, and that can be stressful. In fact, that's a pretty good tip for someone who is at work and hitting the wall, not able to complete little tasks. Sometimes just cleaning up your desk and wiping it down can help you get motivated. Number 3 is a revolution for rest. Staying organized can revolutionize the way you sleep. Going to bed with a messy house, particularly a messy room, can greatly impact how your body and mind shifts into rest because you're trying to shut down your brain when your eyes are still over-processing the surrounding information. Furthermore, having unnecessary items in your bedroom increases your chance of trapping dust, dirt, and other bacteria that could be harmful to your immune system. Even something as simple as making your bed every day can have a big impact on the way you sleep. In fact, a survey by the National Sleep Foundation found that those who make their bed every morning are 19% more likely to report good regular rest. A whopping 75% said they felt better. They felt they got a better night's sleep with a fresh, clean sheets because they felt better physically. So that's interesting. Can help you get more rest. Number 4 is increase endorphins. Learning to be organized will help you better stick to a normal schedule, which comes in particularly handy if you've promised your body a regular workout routine. At the same time, having an organized workout regimen allows you to see the progress you've made, which is very similar to the progress of becoming organized. The more you stick to an orderly schedule, the more positive the results you will see. So as you can see, it increases your endorphins. So not only at home, but at work as well. So if you're feeling lethargic, not motivated at work, perhaps doing the organization at work can actually help you feel better rather than sitting there looking at it and getting stressed out. Number 5 is pump up the productivity. It says plain and simple, clutter is distracting when you're surrounded by it. It prevents you from focusing on the task at hand. Looking at too many things at once is an overload of information of your eyes, and your brain is unable to process it all at once. Start correcting this problem by staying organized one step at a time. Organize your desk or whatever your workspace might be first, then move on to the surrounding office. Once you've achieved an organized work environment, you'll likely notice the clutter back at home. Being organized in one room at a time and starting with the most frequently used. By the time you're finished, you'll find productivity at an all-time high. So those are some of the psychological benefits of being organized. Another article here that I have, again, this is by Katie Halverson. She talks about benefits, and she mentioned some of the ones that we just discussed. She says, organizing your life isn't easy. Even knowing your disorganization is causing you pain probably isn't enough to motivate you. But knowing some of the benefits of organizing might just do the trick. What are some of the benefits? She mentioned sleep, as we previously talked about, reduces stress, improve your relationships. I can see how that would help. Focus on other aspects of your life and free up time and energy to improve other areas. Reduce depression and anxiety, make better food choices, and stick to a workout routine, which will help you lose weight and help make you more productive. Who wouldn't want that? Lots of good benefits psychologically by being organized. I think the interesting thing to me, the interesting takeaway here, is that, when you have a disorganized space, and you look at it subconsciously, your brain is starting to think about what you need to do to organize. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about why you can't get organized. Are you a can't organize or a won't organize? We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. You're listening to My Strategy. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We're very happy to be here with you today and glad you can join us. My Strategy episodes are live and on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today we're talking about staying organized and how it can improve your effectiveness. We're talking about the benefits of being organized, why it's challenging to stay organized, and giving you tips and tricks to help you get organized, even if you don't feel like it. Love to get your thoughts. You can call the studio numbers at 866-451-1451. That's 866-451-1451. Be taking calls a little later in the show, or you can send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. Give us your thoughts, and you can enter to win in our weekly giveaway, which is a $25 Visa gift card and a copy of my latest book, Coach to Greatness. Right before the break, we were talking about the psychological benefits of being organized. In this segment, I want to talk a little bit about why you can't get organized. I've got an article here by Mark Banchik, MD. Article is titled, Why You Can't Get Organized When Organization is a Phobia. I think it's important to always look at this from a number of different perspectives, because in some cases we don't want to do things, but in other situations we can't, and it's always important to be able to identify when it's something we can't do and might need some help. He says here, the can't or won't problem. Is it a can't or won't when it comes to summarizing the reasons why people fail to organize their stuff? Can't implies the inability. Won't is a lack of initiative. Mindy, which is a fictitious name, tells me I just don't have the gene to organize. Could it be genetics that's stopping Mindy from organizing her important household stuff? Could it be a neurological issue? Mindy is a very creative, right-brained individual. For decades, Mindy has read books and has many failed attempts to follow guidance on organizing papers and assorted stuff. Does that sound familiar? She feels like a failure because she can't maintain a system of organization. Plus, she rarely remembers where she puts her stuff. Yet many disorganized people complain about their memory. While the cognitive decline is a real thing, finding yourself overwhelmed can affect thinking, especially in his experience with creative people. I'm going to highlight this line because it has to deal with creative people. Reader, you may be chuckling as you recognize this in yourself, but it is not funny. It can be painful. People spend hours each year searching for important information that they put in a good place. Then they spend hours and money trying to replace those items because they can't locate them. Just interesting that they point out creative people. Several shows ago, we were talking about inspiration and how it's important to have an environment that gives you inspiration. But having too much inspiration around you might also lead to disorganization. And so there's, I think, a fine balance between the two. Organizing overwhelms, and many smart people truly believe they're hopeless. They develop bad habits, leaving things around their house and office because they think that stuff will be available later. So those are those folks, or his summary of what we're talking about with the can'ts and the won'ts. He then goes on to say, can't get started, can't manage interruptions, can't get distracted. Starting a new project can be daunting. Some people need to be in the right frame of mind to start a project, while others can just do it. If you're easily distracted, count on being even more distracted, especially if the project is the dreaded organization project. He says here that with or without ADD, many people don't know how to begin to sort through all their stuff. And that's where I think this comes down to, really having a strategy, a system, a plan in place for you so that if you do suffer from lack of organization, you at least have some tactics. And tactics are the visible things that you're doing to help you get more organized. He then talks about don't feel like it. He says, our feelings get in the way with our relationships to stuff. This is according. And Rhonda, a fictitious name, refused to keep a calendar date because she wanted her life to be flexible and to be like a butterfly and do as she pleased. Often, any plans made in advance were forgotten until a good friend called to remind her. Now, that's a good friend. But again, maybe that friend actually enabled her fairy tales. So there's another example where this person won't commit to it. They decide that they want to be flexible and free, so they don't schedule anything and don't have any organization, but that can backfire on them. So I think that as I start to think about this and his advice here, we are in a couple of different camps. You've got one camp which just doesn't want to do it, doesn't want to be organized for one reason or another. Then you have the other camp of folks who don't have the aptitude or ability to be able to do it. And as we go through the show, I want you to think about, where are you and which camp are you in? Are you in the camp where you don't have the aptitude and ability? Or are you in the camp where you just don't want to do it? And I think if you can come up with some examples of your own daily life and when you are organized and when you're not, that's going to be helpful when it comes time to building a strategy and a plan to increase your ability to be organized. Because I think there are just so many benefits of being organized. There are so many, positive health benefits. There are positive benefits with respect to, relationships, with respect to business. Just think about that. If you're running a business or you work for a business and the business is not organized, it can really impact the relationships and the brand that company has. So from that perspective, just think about, are you a can't or a won't? And figuring out exactly which camp you fit in is one of the first steps you need to take to be able to start to assess this situation and look at your tactics and ultimately come up with a plan to become better organized. And you know what? In some cases, we learn best by example, and it might not hurt to ask somebody else who is good at organization for their help. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, I'm going to go through 27 of the best tips to get and stay organized. Well, I'll attempt to get through all 27. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio, and this is my strategy. Welcome back, everyone, if you're just joining us. So happy to be here with you today and really glad that you could join us. My strategy episodes are live and on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today we're talking about staying organized can help improve your effectiveness. In this episode, we're talking about the benefits of being organized, why it's challenging to stay organized, and I'm giving you tips to help get you organized even if you do not feel like it. Right before the break, we were talking about why you can't get organized. Mark Banshik wrote a piece on can't or won't, and I asked you to think about what camp you were in, whether you were somebody who lacked the ability or somebody who lacked the drive and motivation to do it and didn't want to do it. So in this segment, I want to transition over to some tips to help us get and stay organized. I've got this article here from Leo Bauta, and he's basically captured 27 different tips to help you organize your life. He says here that he must emphasize these are not his tips, but yours. So he's giving them to you as a gift, I suppose. And when you see the word I, refer to the reader writing the tip, not me. And names have been removed to protect the innocent. Number 1, 3 most important tasks. Writing down and making mental notes of your top 3 tasks to get done for the day. Everything else seems to fall in place when he does that. So 3 most important tasks for the day. An easy and workable task list or to-do list. He says he loves the handy Web 2.0 apps, computer games, gadgets, other things like cell phones, etc. He's lazy and has a lazy attitude, and so it's easier for him to have it in just one place. And I agree with that. I think we all need to have some sort of a task list, an easy-to-use and workable task list. Number 3, keep ubiquitous capture device. And what he means by this is you have one place to store all of your activities and tasks, a central repository, a source of truth for what it is that you are working on. And if you can organize yourself that way, you're going to create the habit of going to that one device every time, and it gives you the ability to organize it. It says choose one tool and stick with it. Do one thing at a time. Do it now. Don't wait. Make use of the word no. No is a hard word for us to say. I know I sometimes have an issue using the word no. John, can you help me with this? Oh, yes, of course I can. John, can you do this? Absolutely. Be right on it. But if John were to go around and say yes to every request that everyone makes of John, John would not have time to do what he needs to do. I assume you might find yourself in a similar situation where you want to be helpful, you want to say yes, but in certain situations, it is important for you to say no. It says use the recycle bin and trash basket. Organizing unnecessary items is wasted energy. It's amazing how much more control this writer feels by ridding themselves of the outdated articles they would like to read someday. I think, too, that's important if you get subscriptions. I know one of the tips they give you is if you get subscriptions, I'm talking about the physical subscriptions to magazines or newspapers, but not many people get newspapers anymore. But I know one of the tips there was to make sure, and this applies to email inbox, to messaging and other things, but don't keep those around. Odds are you're not going to read them. If you haven't read them in 2 weeks, throw them away. It says number 9 is a good place for everything and everything in its place. By finding places that are easy to get for all things that he uses most often, and places that are pretty easy to get things for that he uses less often. That way he spends less time going through all things trying to find what he needs. Simplify, simplify, simplify. Well, that one's pretty obvious. Put it away now. The single simplest thing he does to stay organized is put whatever thing he was working with away at the moment he finishes using it. That's a good habit to be in. Why not? Why not put things away as soon as you're done using them? Keep a to-do list that syncs with your mobile devices so that you have it with you everywhere you go. And I think that's a pretty simple one in this day and age. Most things are stored on the cloud, and as a result, you have the ability to access it everywhere you have a wireless or wired connection. Change. It obsoletes unimportant things. It brings down any method or idea that isn't timeless. It brings up newer and more important things that you and others can't resist anymore. Change is hard, though, but if the good change and the right change can really help. Divide material into red, yellow, blue, and green plastic folders. Let's see where he's going with this. For example, anything that has to be done today, paperwork given to a client, bills to be mailed, go in the red folder. Contact material or anything related to customer field support goes into the yellow folder. And he says your mileage may vary with how you organize your briefcase, and like he has very project-specific manila folders. Well, I think now most of us do everything on the computer, so you could use that same logic with your folder structure that you have. Now it's not physical items that we need to organize, it's the digital ones. Unapologetically, take control of your time and priorities. Start at the source. He says his favorite organizational tool is the post office box. He visits it once a week, stands at the counter, and as he's going through it, uses the trash bin, going through and organizing his mail and throwing away the junk mail. That's a good little tip. Then goes on, talked about some other ones, about a sheet of paper, a calendar, and a whiteboard. He uses those to help keep organized. Color coding, having binders, writing down, and many more tips. Those are some tips. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, when we come back, we're going to help you create your strategy to stay organized. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. You're listening to My Strategy. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We're very happy to be here with you today. Today we're talking about staying organized and how it can improve your effectiveness. We're talking about the benefits of being organized, why it's challenging to stay organized, and we're giving you tips to help keep you organized even when you don't feel like it. We've talked about a lot of things in this show. We've talked about disorganization, the psychological benefits, why you can't get organized, gave you some tips to consider. In this segment, I want to talk about your strategy. I want to talk about your approach. What are you going to do to help become more organized? Now, you might be too organized as well, and that also could be an inhibitor for you if you are too organized, because I think that being too organized can actually impact your ability to be creative. But that is just my own personal assessment and observation of people I've worked with and companies I've worked with. So let's talk about a systematic approach. I've got these 5 different areas that you should be thinking about when it comes time to building a strategy. The first is awareness. Now, what is your vision? What are your goals? What do you want to achieve? Is there something you are trying to accomplish? Something you are trying to do? And organization or disorganization plays a part in that. That's the first thing. Second, once we've identified that we either need to be more organized or better organized, or we need to be disorganized in certain cases, let's start to look at this from a practical perspective. We want to assess and analyze. We need the data, the information. We need to look at the situation and figure out what is it that isn't working. What are we having difficulty making decisions? How is this disorganization keeping us from getting to our vision, keeping us from accomplishing our goals? And we have to answer these questions. If we don't answer these questions, it's very difficult for us to put a strategy in place, because then we don't know the cause and effect. We can look at the pros and cons, but I need to know what is the cause and effect. If there is a specific action that you're taking and organization is something that could help, we need to know that. Once you've identified what is going on, and it could be a business impact, perhaps your store shelves are cluttered on stocking day, and as a result of that, you notice that orders are lower. Or perhaps you are disorganized at your home office, and as a result of that, you are unable to be productive or not able to get things done. You could be just stressed out all the time and not know why. And we learned earlier that when the eye sees a cluttered environment, it naturally thinks about what are all the things I need to do to organize that environment. And if you are in that situation, it can be very stressful because your brain is working overtime. And then you try and sit down and say, okay, I'm going to not listen to my subconscious and clean things, but I'm going to start focusing on a new task. Well, next thing you know, there's stress. It could lead to, eating too much, drinking too much. There's a lot of implications. And so we really need to understand. So then we want to create our strategy and plan. What is it that we are trying to solve here? How much time do we have to invest? What have we tried? Should we try a different tactic? Are there tips and tricks that we could implement in our daily lives? And we need to be, very precise about those actions that we're taking. We need to be precise about the visible signs, the things that we're doing, which are tactics. Because all of those go into our strategy. Of course, once we've put together the strategy and plan, we need to implement the plan. Start thinking about what is this new course of action that I'm working on here? What is the tactic that I'm implementing? If you're somebody who goes to work and you've been stressed out, you don't know why, your desk is messy, And by cleaning off your desk, wiping it down, you might see that, hey, I don't feel as stressed when I start off my week. Well, if you're going to do that once a week, is it better to do it Mondays and Wednesdays? Is it better to do it once a month? How often should you be doing it? Is this something you should do once a day? And I say that, I don't think everybody needs to be organized 100% of the time every single day, because I believe that to be creative, you need to have that inspiration, and you need to have different, objects to look at, inspiration, things to help you, be inspired. So it's going to take a balance in figuring out, what is it that you need to have. And maybe it is that if you are somebody who needs to be creative, you could still organize your desk in a way that you put like projects in a folder or like project items in a bin. And when you are focusing on a specific project, you bring out that bin. You still can be organized. You've taken everything and put it in a bin. It goes off your desk at night. But when you need to be creative, you have everything in front of you. I know that the fidget spinners are a big deal, and they help. Companies give them out as little gadgets. Kids use them all the time in school if they have ADHD. So, I realize there are certain times when you need to have things on your desk. And then finally, you need to figure out from a support and evaluation perspective. In many cases, we can't do these things on our own, and it's helpful to have somebody to talk to, a coach, a friend, a brother, a mother, a spouse, a loved one, somebody who can give you that honest feedback to help you with this strategy that you're working on. So, I think it's definitely doable for anyone to create a good strategy to help them either become better organized or in some cases, I don't know how to call this other than disorganized, but we want to do it in a very specific way. But, I think that if you can take into account that systematic approach, it is going to give you the best chance for you to put together a plan that will help you get to your vision. And, that's ultimately what we're trying to do with strategies and planning is we've got goals, we have objectives, we have something we want to accomplish. And as a result of that, every action, every step that we take either helps you get closer to that goal or it can possibly take you farther away from that goal. And when we start to look at it from that perspective, that really is what a strategy and plan is all about. Is what I am doing today, does that align with where I want to be in the future? And, that's part of the challenge of doing it. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about putting your plan in place. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio, and you've been listening to My Strategy. Well, in case you missed this broadcast, you can listen on iHeartRadio, Apple iTunes, or one of the many other digital platforms that's out there. If you'd like to have something covered on the show, send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com, or you can give us a call at 1-844-MY-STRATEGY. That's 844-MY-STRATEGY. Well, on the show, we've been talking about staying organized. Can it improve your effectiveness? We've been talking about the benefits of being organized, why it's challenging to stay organized, and I've been giving you tips to help you stay organized even when you don't feel like it. In this show, we've been talking a lot about the impact of being disorganized. We talked about how disorganization can ruin you and also your business. From a personal perspective, being disorganized can lead to stress, weight gain, impact your personal relationships. From a business perspective, it can cost you productivity, morale, can impact your client base. So I think we know that there definitely are some disadvantages to being disorganized in our personal and also business lives. We then talked a little bit about the psychological benefits of organization. You can say goodbye to stress, help increase endorphins. It can help you sleep better at night. It can help you be more productive. And I think, when I think about all those psychological benefits, there's a lot of benefits there that can help us, especially from a personal development perspective, which is what my strategy is all about. We then talked about why you can't get organized. Are you part of the can't camp or the won't camp? The can't camp doesn't know how and doesn't have the ability or aptitude. The won't doesn't feel like it, and so they choose not to do it. I think it's important for us to identify where we fit. Are we a can't or a won't? Once we can identify that, that's going to give us a pretty good indicator as to where we need to go next in building our strategy. We then went through 27, well, not quite 27, but we went through a number of different tips that you can use to stay organized. Talked about specify just 3 things that you do on a daily basis. Your task list in one place. Do things now. Put that away now. And, really come up with a way to stay organized and stay on top of it. Then talked a little bit about your strategy and how we're trying to help you use a systematic approach to create the strategy. And the strategy is pretty simple. You have to have some sort of a vision or goal that you're trying to achieve before you implement an organization or disorganization strategy. And I say disorganized because sometimes it can impact the creative process if you're too organized. But I think it's going to all come down to breaking of habits. Being aware of negative patterns is hard to do. And we have to really think about what it is, and it's the conscious prioritization of those things that we're doing and finding ways to implement those new actions in our lives. And all of this will help you find clarity. And I think having clarity is really important because it's going to let you know exactly what you need to do. There's no ambiguity when you have clarity. If you know what you need to do, you can do it. If you don't have clarity, that's where you've got analysis paralysis. You have to start rethinking things. Is what I'm working on right? Is it not? And by putting all that together and having a coach that helps can help you find that clarity. You've been listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, really enjoyed the show today. We'll see you next time.